quickly tell you about thread shadows. So as we're stitching along, you might notice that you can see through your fabric, depending on how thick your fabric is, and the thread can create a little shadow that comes through to the front. And it's not something I want you to worry about much, especially as a beginner, but I'll just briefly show you a tip that can help prevent these. So I've finished stitching this stem here, and now I'd like to stitch this stem here. And whilst it might be really tempting, so my thread's hanging out up here, that's where I finished. It's really tempting to just bring my needle up over here. But you know what that would do? I'll show you. So I'm just going to go straight from the top of that stem, and then I'll start stitching this stem. Can you see that thread shadow? It might not be majorly noticeable, and when you're starting out, I really don't want you to worry too much about this kind of thing. But if you'd like to keep your work really nice and tidy, it's a good idea to avoid carrying your thread over open areas of fabric where it might create a bit of a shadow. So rather than doing this, I'll show you something else you can do. So you can see at the back now, I carried my thread across that open area of fabric, and that is showing through as a shadow because there's no stitches there to hide it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use the blunt end of my needle to unwind that stitch. Then I'll rethread my needle, and here's my tip. To get from this point to that point, if there's stitches on the other side that are ready to go, you can just weave your way under them to get to point B. So let me show you. I've finished my thread here and I want to start a new line over there. Rather than finishing my thread, cutting it off, having to rethread my needle, if I've got plenty of thread left and I don't want to go through that process, I'm just going to duck my needle under the existing stitches at the back. I'm not piercing the fabric. I'm just weaving my way under those stitches until I get to the point where I want to start stitching again. Now, I know I'm really close to where I want that stem to start, so I'm going to turn my hoop over, and now I can bring my needle up here at the start of the stem, and I can go ahead and stitch that stem. And you know what? There's no thread shadow going from A to B because all that thread was tucked underneath tidily at the back. So this is just a little tip for if you're feeling a bit confident to try doing this weaving technique to prevent shadows. If you're a beginner and you find that sounds a little bit overwhelming, please don't worry about it. Just move your thread around your piece however feels comfortable and enjoyable for you. But if you've got the confidence, this is a really cool tip to start incorporating into your work.